This is The Healthy Healer, where true voice is your medicine. This is where we help doctors and other healers navigate through the challenging times by learning from the best minds in the healing industry. Laugh, cry, and be surprised. It's entertainment, education, and inspiration so you can continue to be the unique and amazing healer you were destined to be. Welcome to humanity. Welcome to The Healthy Healer with Dr. Fred.
Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Fred, and it's great to have you here on the next episode of The Healthy Healer. So today we actually have a guest from the other side of the world, and I'm not kidding, like literally from the other side of the world. From an island in Thailand, Sanal Bhanu Rajan joins us today for a really curious, extremely wonderful conversation as we look at the makings of something that we all have and how we can address what we all have so that we can access true and honest spirituality. I think Sanal would call himself at this point an expert in spirituality and has designed a mechanism so that each of us has actually found a mechanism so that each of us can find spirituality in a unique way and learn about it, discover it for ourselves, and apply it in our life. Without further ado, and I don't want to put words into his mouth, let me introduce you to Sanal Bhanu Rajan from Thailand. Sanal, thanks for being here tonight. It's beautiful to have you. Tonight here, but morning there.
Yep. Hello.
It's great to have you, Sanal. Tell us a little bit about, I understand you're in Thailand and you have an American wife. How did this go? And what has been your living history? Where have you lived in the world? And how long have you been in Thailand? And tell us a little bit about that.
I'm from India. I'm from the south of India, from a state called Kerala. And I grew up in a beach town myself. And it's a town where a lot of tourists come. So my wife, she used to come to this spiritual guru in my state. She's known as the Hugging Saint. So she used to come there since 2013. So I met her when she came to my beach town, and they were organizing an ecstatic dance. And my wife have a long, so many years of experience with organizing and doing these kind of dances, ecstatic dances. So it's basically a sober dance where people come together and dance in a conscious way. And that's where I met her. And we have been living here in Thailand for an year now. We have a 3-year-old son, and Thailand Thailand is wonderful. It's really been amazing, especially the place where I am, Koh Phangan. It's actually known as the Tantra Island, and it has, I would say, it's a very important place. A lot of things come together to give you powerful experiences.
Yeah, and what did you call it? What kind of place did you call it? Powerful?
It's very powerful. Spiritually, it has like a really strong power.
Like a vortex, or like a central space where things come together in unexpected ways. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like exactly. Energy comes together and fits. Like there's a fitting nature to it. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so you lived there for, you said 1 year?
Yeah.
Where were you in India up until that time?
Yep. And okay. I've been teaching there for the last 2 years. Before coming to Thailand, I have been teaching what I have created, this methodology. I have been teaching it in universities in India as a soft skill trainer. So it's more about mind management skills, mind mastery, personal development. So there's soft skill training for any kind of professional courses. So I would be going in universities. Teaching.
Interesting. So talk to us a little bit about what is this mind mastery and how does the ego fit in and how do we get access to spirituality? And that's a big question. These are not small questions, of course. These are the essence of life in a lot of ways. And for you to be a teacher of that is audacious. You've taken some steps that not only do you understand it, but you feel comfortable with it enough to bring it to basic human beings who are as yet unaware of what it means to be spiritual. And you have your own definition of spirituality, including and talking about the ego. So talk just a little bit more about what you teach and what you know about spirituality and how you can enlighten us about what spirituality really is.
Okay, so I call what I teach as spiritual logic because it's more oriented in logic and in modern, integrated with modern understanding of our condition and of our state of being in the world too. So it's not, so when I call ego, what I'm referring to is the autobiographic self. So in psychology we make distinctions between three kind of self. So there is the proto self. So proto self is simply a basic understanding of your body and your body, under where your body's limits are and stuff like that. It's basic understanding in the head, allows us to navigate through without hitting on stuff and everything. So the proto self is just a simple model of the body in the mind. So then we have the autobiographic self. So autobiographic self is what I would, in spiritual terms, we can call it ego. So it's all the stories that you are telling to yourself about yourself to make sense of yourself in the world. So basically, we are human, we are storytellers, and we, through the stories, we understand ourselves, the ego self. So these stories is what I would call as the ego, the autobiographic self.
Okay. And what is
And
the
then
first
there
self called? What is the lower one called? The first self you spoke
the,
to?
it's the proto self,
The Broca?
proto,
Okay,
proto
proto
self.
self. Okay, understood.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
And then we come to what in spirituality we come to the true self, right? So that we call in psychology the core self.
Okay.
So the course, but there's a distinction between core self and the way the true self is mentioned in spirituality. Because in spirituality, we, when we are speaking about the self, we come without all the dogmas, we come to the understanding that we are being. uh, the sense of being is what we come to as the, come to recognize as the self. But when we are speaking about the core self, it's not only a sense of being, but it's also a sense of agency, also a sense of presence and a sense of agency. So a feeling of I am and I can. This is, so that's both comes together. So that's what brings in the core self. So when I, my main aim when I'm working with people is to bring them to that place of I am and I can, a sense of competence. Because
Uh-huh.
usually we struggle with, people in the world are struggling a lot with control, or I would say letting go of control, or struggling to let go of it. So the need for being in control usually stems out of the insecurity of your own incompetence when it comes to handling or creating with whatever comes up. So that if you have a strong enough competence, a sense of belief in your own competence in being able to handle whatever it is, however things come, you can handle it, I can create with it and create good results with it. If you have a sense of competence like that, then usually there is no the neediness for being in control usually just completely melts away.
Mm.
So being in your core self, there is no need for being in control. But you, and it's all, it's about you being able to bear yourself upon the world and not let the world bear itself upon you so much. Being able to have that sort of an agency in the world, being able to influence, being able to have, being in your choice, you know.
I really appreciate this, and I want to hear a little bit more about like when you bring this into university or you bring it into people who don't know what they're about to learn. Is your goal to have the students actually reach their own epiphany into the true self, into their core self as a function of the course? Is it, in other words, is it something that you learn or is it something that you discover for yourself about who yourself is?
No, you definitely can learn a lot of things to make things better, because you don't have to I would always encourage my students to not only just work with the with instilling that core self within them, but also working on their autobiographic self. Meaning, I would encourage them to pay attention when they are speaking to others about their stories, the stories through which they describe themselves and their life and past and everything. So, to pay attention, because you think and speak at the same time. So, you can literally hear your thoughts as you speak to others. So, not to interrupt, but to take note of it, and even maybe create a journal for writing down your personal narratives, the ones that you have been carrying with you. And just when in your own time, when you're with yourself, to just say it and see whether that story really makes you feel connected to your power, connected to your groundedness, or takes you away from it, takes you to a disempowered place, takes you out of your groundedness. So things like this, because people usually tend to carry along a lot of stories where they depict themselves as the victims within the stories, and it creates a lot of disempowerment in their life. So what I would encourage is always to take notice of these kind of personal narratives they are sharing, that they are telling to everyone in their life, and just take a really close look at that story and see and ally with their own strengths within them, because one thing that they have is that they have handled it. Maybe they didn't handle it perfectly, the situation, but they have handled it, otherwise they wouldn't be here to tell the story. So to ally with all those strengths that they brought into the table, that allowed them to really handle those situations. So what are those strengths? When did I learn that? How did I become good at those things? To really ally with your own bigness, with your
Hmm.
own strengths. It's because most of the traumas that we speak in the so-called world, the PTSD is a big thing right now. But something that we often don't hear being spoken about is trauma. There are two kind of people. There are people who get stuck in their life after the traumatic event, and there are people who that becomes like a stepping stone, that becomes the event that catapults them. So that's called trauma growth. So the only thing that's difference between these two people who is traumatized by them, the whole thing, is that their own commitment to keeping that story where they describe or see themselves as a victim in it, in that situation, and their unwillingness to let go of that or look at that story any differently,
Interesting.
bringing in any, yeah. So
Yeah.
the people who are able to change the stories, their life grows from those
So
points.
you mentioned a couple things here. I have some curious inquiries. So I'm very curious about a couple things. Number one, you mentioned that we speak and think at the same time. So if we listen carefully, we can hear our thoughts because they're actually happening simultaneously. And then many of us carry disempowering context into our voice, into the stories that we deliver. And if we are able to really look hard at what it is that we're saying about our stories, we get to learn that we might be thinking either empowering thoughts that bring us to a groundedness or disempowering thoughts which take us to a disempowering distance from our honest to goodness powerful narrative. Is that accurate?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Now, what's interesting is that you mentioned that once we're aware of that, perhaps we can change what we say about our stories. It doesn't, is it, are you saying that if I tell a story differently than what I intended to say. Like if I tell a story like I was traumatized and I'm injured, I'm less of a person, I'm flimsy, I'm maybe fragile or something like that. If I say all that might be a disempowering context. Are you saying that all I have to do is to alter that story and say, I'm traumatized and I'm using this as a stepping stone for a powerful lifetime into the future for which this was a contributing factor to my own personal growth and development? And if I say that instead of a disempowering context, that I have actually altered the trajectory of my world by changing my stories?
Not really, because the thing is, the stories, why the stories have power over your life is because you believe those stories to be true. So you need to believe that other stories that you're going to be changing to be true. So it's about actually being able to change the lens through which you are looking at that situation. Literally, you are looking at that situation literally through a different lens and seeing it differently. So the point is, your seeing, your perception shapes your ground of being. So how you see a situation will have a lot of influence on how you're going to be in that situation. So
Okay.
your being, so the ground of being becomes like this sort of a place from where whatever actions and doings emerge from. And regardless of whatever you do, there is always results getting created in the world. So that's like what you have as a result. So this is the model I usually would teach in universities: be, do, have. But
Yeah.
before the be, there is always seeing. So perception has a central role when it comes to shaping your experience of being in any situation or looking at anything. So
Right.
you can literally acknowledge the fact that my perception is not truth, because there's this analogy that I would be teaching: the map is not the territory, whereas the map is compared to the perspective you have about something, and the territory being the truth of it, of that situation, you know.
Okay.
So the
All right.
perspective, the map is not the territory, but the map is a useful thing when it comes to relating to the territory. So it's about the utility of the map. Is it a useful map when it comes to navigating through it? Yep. So
Okay, fantastic. I get it. So let me ask it again then. I understand the be, do, and have model, and specifically in that order. And I'm also hearing that the context or the perception that we bring ourselves to prior to dictates or gives us the lens for which we then get to define who we be. And by defining who we be, that just creates a natural outcome of what we do, and which then gives us what we have. There's something like this, right? This sequence.
yeah,
All right. If the and you talk about it's not just a matter of saying something different, but there's something about actually believing what we say when we say something different. So now you're talking about this really strange skill that is about altering or transforming our belief system on the fly, on a dime. Like instead of believing that I'm a disempowered, injured, fragile soul who's at the effect of the world, can I actually flip that and become one who believes that I can take control of I can take agency for my life. I can take actually control in my life and move my life forward based on the notion that I can handle anything, that I have all the tools that I would ever need to handle anything coming down the pike. And how do I know that? Because I'm here, and therefore I've handled everything that has come my way up until now. So I have an infinite number of examples, an infinite sample of events that has taken me to the truth, which is I can handle anything that can happen because I have up until now. There you go. That's my evidence. There's 100% truth that I can handle everything because I have up until now. Because if I hadn't, then I wouldn't be here. All of that
yeah,
makes sense, correct?
yep. It,
Okay.
it, it builds in, if you take the time to really appreciate and honor and acknowledge all that strength you have. The thing is, to those who have, yet more shall be given. You know,
Hmm. Yeah.
to those who have not, even what they shall have will be taken away. So, like that, to those who have, so to those who own what they have, that's the point of it. So if you appreciate and acknowledge your strength in all of those, because people have the habit of carrying all the defeats with them or counting all the defeats, but they don't really count the victories. Maybe the victory could be as small as just having the courage to step into the game, because you can lose. There is a chance, and it takes courage to step into it. And a lot of people even don't take that chance. So there is definitely things, even in the defeats, you are looking at what you have versus what you don't have. You know,
Hmm. Yeah.
paying attention to it more, paying attention and acknowledging more of it, and of course then your competence really build. It's like a muscle. The more you see it, the more you acknowledge it, the more you appreciate it, the more you honor it, the more it becomes stronger, that
Well,
sense of
it's interesting when you call it a muscle. And again, we're at this very strange little fulcrum of altering my beliefs, like altering my belief system as the intersection, the turning point of the whole thing is how I believe the world is, like how I believe the world treats me or who I am in the world. Does the world treat me or do I, in fact, create the world that I live in? We start really looking at this question directly. And I notice that if you call it a muscle, I know that if I want to build a muscle, this is not an overnight process. This isn't boom, I got muscles. That's not how that really works. So initially, when I take that first step to alter the way that I believe about the world, I might be even skeptical about my new belief. I might not believe my new belief. I want to believe something new. I want to believe that I'm strong. I want to believe that I'm capable. I want to believe that I have agency. I want to believe that I'm competent. I want to believe that my victories outweigh my defeats. I want to believe that I have all the tools necessary. I want to believe I am and that I can. I want to believe all that, all right? But if I've not believed that up until this point, when the first day comes that I decide that's the life I want to live, isn't it possible that there'll be a little smidgen of disbelief or of skepticism that comes in the early stages, like that maybe I can't lift this weight? Or is that representative of the old self that needs to be discarded if I'm going to make this transformation?
Okay, so if I'm speaking from a psychological point of view, so what we have, before we come to the truth of something, there's two ways to reach the truth of something. So there is the epistemological calibration, where you need proof and evidence in order to support what you believe to be true. So that's the way you come to the truth, by having enough proof and enough evidence to support it. You know, or you have ontological calibration. So ontological calibration is you are choosing something to be the truth without really caring for what is the real truth out there of it or
Right.
something.
Hmm.
So basically, ontological calibration is not something we as a society have so much experience in, or being trained at. So the point is, it's every thought has a corresponding felt sense. So the thing is, it's going to be very subtle, because usually we experience charged thoughts. That's the one we have tuned into noticing much. But if you really sit with really non-charged thoughts, like I have learned, or I learned, I am learning, and simple thoughts like this, and start paying attention, you can notice that each time when you're saying a thought, there is a corresponding felt sense, and usually that is around the center part of the upper body, around right around the spine, no nothing around the extremities. So you can literally locate the sensation. If you might like need a little bit of training to notice, like a being a good connoisseur of wine, being able to notice the subtleties and nuances, it takes a little bit of time to develop that sort of capability, or that quality,
Hmm.
capacity. Yeah. So the same way you can notice it, and once you can locate a felt sense, however small it is, to in corresponding to that thought, all you have to do is just pay attention to that felt sense you located, and rest your attention there, because where your attention goes, energy flows, and that thing will grow. So that feeling will grow into a feeling of absolute certainty. So that's a way to reach there, by developing this capability to notice the felt sense corresponding to thoughts. And once you can locate that and you can pay attention to it, immediately it just grows. That's just the nature of anything, even with pain. You pay attention to it, pain will grow more, because where
Yeah,
your attention
where
goes.
attention goes, energy flows and it grows. I really appreciate that. I also have something else I heard in direct juxtaposition of the epistemological approaches versus the ontological approaches. And that epistemologically, what we're looking for is hardcore physicality as evidence for what we believe. And for
And that can be epistemological calibration also has utility, because when we have completely self-limiting, disempowering thought structures, now it is time to put it on some epistemological point
yeah,
of view. Okay, do I have all the proof and evidence to see this is the whole truth of the situation? So
right.
then you can dismantle it and take the charge out like that too.
Right. I'm wondering a little bit. This sounds like a few different people that I know. There's a couple different references that I've heard here from maybe Werner Erhard. I don't know if someone you have studied before a little bit, or Werner
Who?
Erhard. Erhard, have you heard EST or landmark training? No, they
No,
speak.
but I have took stuff from, I've been a hypnotherapist for 10, 12 years in my life. I learned conversational hypnotherapy, covert hypnosis, all sort of hypnosis modalities. And so I took like stuff from so many different places now into this. So it just like, I just wanted to make sure something that someone can pick up and make use of it, but it is not, it has so many places, from
Yeah, so many
neuroscience,
different
from
sources.
cognitive science, from NLP, from hypnosis, from
Yes,
you name it.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, wonderful. And I really appreciate who you've been, and I really appreciate our conversation. So now you're out there in Thailand. My guess is that you're doing some healing work and some teaching there. If someone wanted to find you and get some learning or really follow you and your brilliance, how would they actually go about finding you?
They can find me in Instagram, as my ID is wisdom with Sanal. So it's wisdom with SANAL, Sanal. So also I have my coaching website. It's called spiritualogic.com. So you can check me out there and see the students who have worked with this particular methodology for a few months, how it has been for them. And I'm also planning on doing a TEDx talk on the importance of personal narrative and shifting it for fast tracking personal growth in life and stuff like that next year, probably by fall. And I do have a podcast gift. So
Yeah,
www.podcastgiftnow.com. So people,
podcastgift.com.
yeah, podcastgiftnow.com.
Okay. All right.
So you
Beautiful.
can find, yeah, there is classes that I have been doing. I have been recording the classes live. I have been giving here in a yoga and detox place.
And
And so
go
it's
ahead.
available, it's available in this website, podcastgiftnow.com.
Beautiful. Thank you. And were you a student of Amma as well, by the way? Is that how you met your wife? Or is that from, or how, why were you, or was she just hanging out in your neighborhood and that's how you found her? How did it go?
No, I already was in a spiritual path for a long time, because my family have this whole spiritual background. I started chanting mantras and going to spiritual places from 5 years old. So it was like a ongoing sort of a thing. And by when I was 20, 21, after university, I went to Rishikesh, yeah, in the foothills of Himalayas, and I met this non-duality master, Muji. And I got inspired to want to be a spiritual teacher from that place. And then I came back, but I want to create something of my own, didn't want to repeat just something that's already there, and just want to create contribute, bring some fresh perspective or something new.
Fantastic.
And so I have been on the journey for this last decade.
That's great. That's great to know.
So I met my wife along the way.
Yeah. Fantastic. So now, thanks for being a guest on The Healthy Healer. You're clearly healthy and you're clearly a healer and a unique soul. And really, this spiritual logic makes a lot of sense to me. And I hope that our conversation was rewarding and refreshing and enlightening for our listeners. And I hope it was useful for you and that I was able to stay with you and ask proper questions to get you to say and deliver your thoughts, your feelings, and your words so that we can change the world. So thank you so much, Sanal.
Thank you, Fred. It was really beautiful.
Great job. Thank you. Talk to you on the next time. Bye for now.